Okay. So, I guess this is where I start. Typing this out feels surreal, because 3 months ago, I would have told you with my whole chest that my marriage was rock solid. The kind you build a life on. Ben and I were that couple who met in college, survived grad school on ramen and big dreams, and built a comfortable, beautiful life in our suburban Denver split level. He's a project manager, I'm a graphic designer. We have a dog named Hubble, yes, after the telescope, we are that kind of nerds. Our life was a rhythm of inside jokes, shared chores, and a quiet, deep love I thought was impervious to this. The first sign wasn't a lipstick stain or a mysterious perfume. It was a stillness. Ben, who's always been a little insecure, needing reassurance about his career, his role, his hairline, suddenly got quiet. He'd always been a sharer, unloading his work dramas over a glass of Malbec. Then, he stopped. He'd come home, kiss my forehead, and retreat into his phone with a focus that felt like a wall. When I'd ask, "How was your day?" it was just, "Fine." Busy. There was a new distance in his eyes, a space I couldn't cross. He started working later, citing a critical phase on a project with a new client. His phone, which used to charge on the kitchen counter, now lived in his pocket, screen face down. He bought new cologne. He started going to the gym at 6 a.m., something he'd mocked for years. I told myself I was being paranoid. That this was just a phase, maybe a midlife thing. I started working out more, bought new lingerie, tried to initiate more. But when we'd kiss, it felt like he was holding his breath, like he was waiting for it to be over so he could get back to that silent, glowing screen in his pocket. The real change was in bed. Our intimacy had always been warm, familiar, a language we both spoke fluently. But it became performative. His touches, once exploratory and tender, became rushed, almost clinical. One night, I tried to slow things down, tracing the line of his jaw the way he used to love. I kissed his neck, felt the familiar stubble against my lips, and moved to whisper in his ear. He flinched. Actually flinched, like my touch was a shock. He pulled back, his breath catching not in passion, but in what I now realize was guilt. "Sorry," he muttered, "just tired." He then proceeded with a kind of detached efficiency that left me feeling hollow, lying there in the dark afterward, listening to his fake sleep breathing, knowing in the deepest, most silent part of my soul that the man next to me was already gone. He was just waiting for his body to catch up to where his mind had already fled. It was a Thursday. Hubble needed his annual shots, so I was working from home. Ben had left in a rush that morning, again, mumbling about an early meeting. He'd forgotten his favorite jacket, the navy Patagonia one he lived in. The weather had turned, a crisp Colorado fall morning, so I decided to be a good wife and drop it by his office. A surprise. A gesture to bridge the silence. I didn't even get to the car. As I lifted the jacket to drape it over my arm, something crinkled in the chest pocket. A receipt, from one of those boutique hotels downtown. The kind with the artisanal cocktails and the rooftop bar. Dated for 2 nights prior, a Tuesday, when he'd told me he was working past midnight on a server migration. My body went cold and then terribly hot. I stood in our mudroom, Hubble nosing my hand, and stared at the slip of paper. It was just for bar service. 2 glasses of Sancerre. An artisanal cheese plate. $84.50. But it was the time that screamed, 9:47 p.m. And the room number, scribbled in the corner by a server, 1214. The details assaulted me. He'd come home that night just after 11, smelling faintly of soap and mint, like he'd just showered. He'd kissed me and said he'd grabbed a sad desk salad and was beat. I'd believed him. I'd rubbed his shoulders. I sank onto the bench, the jacket on my lap. I brought the receipt to my nose. It smelled like paper, and ink, and beneath that, a ghost of a scent that wasn't mine. A perfume, spicy and floral, something with oud and jasmine. Expensive. Aggressive. My stomach turned. This was it. The proof. Not a smoking gun, but a smoldering, damning slip of thermal paper. My mind raced, trying to architect an excuse. A client meeting. At a hotel bar that late. Without an expense report. Ben, who saved every receipt for tax purposes, had left this one in his pocket. Careless. Or maybe, some part of him wanted to get caught. The urge to drive downtown, to storm into the lobby and demand to know who was in room 1214, was a physical wave. But a heavier, leaden feeling pinned me to the bench. Grief? It arrived before the anger, a suffocating blanket. I sat there for an hour, just holding that receipt, until the words blurred. Hubble rested his head on my knee and whined. He knew. Animals always know when the world has cracked open. I finally moved. I didn't go to his office. I folded the receipt carefully, took a picture of it with my phone, and put it back in his jacket pocket. I hung the jacket back on its hook. I went to my computer, cancelled my meetings for the day, and called the vet to reschedule Hubble. Then I just stared out the window at the aspen trees, their leaves trembling gold in the wind. The foundation of my life had just shifted, and I was the only one who could feel the tremors. The waiting was over. The knowing had begun. I didn't confront him that night. I cooked his favorite pasta carbonara. I set the table. I even lit a candle. I felt like an actor in the play of my own life, my movements precise and detached. He came home, saw the jacket still on its hook, and a flicker of something, relief, passed over his face. He didn't ask if I'd found it. He just kissed my cheek, his lips dry and quick. We ate. The silence was a thick, cheesy glue between us. I watched him. I studied the man I'd slept next to for 12 years. The slight tremor in his hand as he twirled pasta. The way his eyes wouldn't meet mine for more than 2 seconds. The forced, hollow compliments about the food. This was the insecurity I knew, but amplified, twisted into a secret he was cradling against his ribs. Finally, I put my fork down. The sound was too loud in the quiet kitchen. How was the server migration Tuesday? I asked, my voice terrifyingly calm. He blinked. It was long. Why? Just wondering what kind of work makes you smell like hotel soap and Sancerre. The color drained from his face. It was instantaneous, like someone had pulled a plug. He put his own fork down, carefully, as if it were made of glass. What are you talking about? The receipt, Ben. In your jacket pocket. The Hotel Elliott. Room 1214. 9:47 p.m. I saw the calculations flying behind his eyes. Deny? Explain? Lie better. It was a client meeting, he said, the words too fast. An out-of-town vendor. We had to wine and dine them. It went late. I didn't want to worry you. A client meeting in a hotel room. Not the bar, the asterisk room number asterisk is on the receipt, Ben. He flinched. His lie was clumsy, born of panic. We finished the bar tab and went to the room to review schematics. The bar was too loud. You took a shower at this client meeting? I asked, my head tilting. He stared at me, trapped. His jaw worked. Then, the insecurity took over, but it morphed into a defensive, wounded anger. You're checking up on me? You're going through my pockets. Don't you trust me? It was the oldest trick in the book. Offense as defense. A month ago, it might have worked. I might have backtracked, apologized for my suspicion. Now, I just felt cold. Clear. No, I said simply. I don't. Who is she? The directness stunned him. His bravado crumpled. He looked down at his plate, at the congealing cream sauce. It wasn't like that. Wasn't like what? Tell me what it was like, Ben. Use small words. His voice dropped to a mumble. It's Alicia. From the branding team. The new hire. She's just really aggressive. It just happened. It just happened. The 3 most pathetic words in the English language. As if he'd tripped and fallen into her. As if his zipper had been a victim of gravity. How? I asked, my voice deadly quiet. Tell me how it just happened, star. I want the details. I want to know what you did in that room before you came home and kissed me. He shook his head, his eyes shining. Please don't make me. You don't get to say please, I cut in, a tremor finally entering my voice. You lost the right to ask for mercy when you walked into that hotel. Tell me. He took a ragged breath, staring at the candle flame, as if it could burn away his shame. We'd been working late. She was leaning over my desk, showing me a layout. Her perfume, she was just so sure of herself. She kept touching my arm, laughing at everything I said. It made me feel seen. Important. One night she said she was staying at the Elliott for a week while her apartment was being treated for mold. She asked if I wanted to grab a drink to debrief a project. I said yes. He paused, waiting for me to stop him. I was stone. At the bar, she leaned in close. Her knee brushed against mine under the table, and she didn't move it. She was just so confident. It was intoxicating. I had 2 glasses of wine. I felt dizzy, but not from the wine. We went up to her room. She said she'd left the project folder there. Another pause. A tear tracked down his cheek. I felt nothing but a vast, icy emptiness. In the room, she didn't even look for a folder. She just turned and kissed me. And I let her. I kissed her back. Her mouth was different. More demanding. Her hands, they went to my belt, and then under my shirt. Her nails were sharp on my back. I could feel her heart pounding against my chest. I was holding my breath the whole time. My head was screaming, but my body. I just let it happen. I felt wanted in a way I hadn't in. I'm so sorry. He was sobbing now, his head in his hands. It was a mistake. A stupid, fucking mistake. It meant nothing. She means nothing. You're my life. I listened to his confession, to the pathetic justification woven through it. She was aggressive, she made me feel seen, I just let it happen. The details were acid, etching the images into my mind. Her sharp nails. His held breath. The pounding hearts. The man before me was a stranger, small and shattered by his own weakness. The shock I'd been holding back finally surged, but it wasn't loud. It was a silent, devastating wave that washed away the last 12 years, leaving behind a barren, unfamiliar shore. The grief was next. I could feel it waiting in the wings, a hulking shadow. But for now, there was only the clear, cold reality of the truth, laid bare between the pasta and the dying candle. He slept on the couch. I didn't tell him to, he just shuffled out of the room with a pillow and the spare blanket, a picture of penitent misery. I let him. I locked our bedroom door and for a long time, I just stood in the middle of the room, in the dark. Then, it hit. The grief. It wasn't a single emotion, but a cacophony. It was a physical vice around my ribs, making each breath a conscious, ragged effort. It was a fire in my throat, stifling the scream that wanted to tear out of me. It was a cold nausea that had me stumbling to the bathroom, sure I'd be sick, though nothing came but dry, wrenching heaves. I didn't cry prettily. I crumpled onto the bath mat, my body convulsing with sobs so violent they were silent, just shuddering gasps for air. I thought of his hands. Those familiar, square hands with the scar on the thumb from a childhood fishing hook. The hands that had held mine through a miscarriage, that had built our IKEA bed, that had learned the exact spot on my back that held tension. Those hands had touched someone else. Had pulled at another woman's clothes, had felt the heat of a different body. My mind, traitorously, supplied the details. Her nails, sharp on his back. I imagined her. Alicia. Young, probably. Confident. Aggressive. She'd leaned over his desk, a predator in a sheath dress, her perfume a cloud of invitation. And he, my insecure, reassurance-starved Ben, had lapped it up. He'd let it happen. The phrase echoed, taunting me. He'd framed himself as a passive vessel, seduced, almost victimized. But I knew the truth in the detail he'd let slip. I kissed her back. The kiss. That was what unmoored me most. The intimacy of it. I thought of our kisses, the soft, knowing morning ones, the deep, slow after-work reunions, the frantic, joyful ones. His mouth on mine was a language I knew by heart. Now, that mouth had learned a new dialect. Asterisk her mouth was different. More demanding. Asterisk I could feel the ghost of it, a searing brand over my own lips. My skin crawled with the memory of his touch that was no longer solely mine. I spent the night in a hell of my own making. I'd cycle between fury, white-hot, cleansing rage where I planned to burn his clothes on the front lawn, and a bottomless, childlike sorrow where I just wanted my best friend back, the man I thought he was. I'd stare at the closed door, imagining him on the other side, and a wave of pity would wash over me, for his weakness, for the small, shattered man he'd revealed himself to be. Then, disgust would follow, for myself, for pitying him at all. By the time the first grey light of dawn filtered through the blinds, I was hollowed out. The storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape of utter wreckage. I felt 1,000 years old. I splashed water on my face in the bathroom, avoiding my own swollen, red-eyed reflection. The house was oppressively quiet. I opened the bedroom door. He was on the couch, awake, staring at the ceiling. He looked like he'd aged a decade in a night. He sat up quickly, a desperate hope flashing in his bloodshot eyes. "Hey," he whispered, his voice raw. I didn't answer. I walked past him, to the kitchen, and started making coffee. The normalcy of the ritual, grinding beans, pouring water, was both absurd and anchoring. He hovered in the doorway, a ghost in his own home. "Please say something," he pleaded, his insecurity now a gaping, weeping wound. "Yell at me. Throw something. Just, don't look through me like I'm not here." I turned and looked at him then, really looked. This was the man I'd loved. This fragile, lying, weak man. "I have nothing to say to you," I said, and my voice was flat, empty. "The man I would talk to is gone. You killed him last night with your confession." I poured my coffee, the rich, familiar scent now ashes in my mouth. The grief was settling in, a permanent, heavy resident in my chest. This was just day one. The shock had worn off. Now, the real work of mourning, for my marriage, for my trust, for the future we'd planned, was beginning. And I had to do it all while sharing a house with the ghost who had caused it. The days that followed were a study in surreal normalcy. We moved around each other in the house like satellites in decaying orbits, crossing paths in the kitchen, passing the salt, speaking only in necessities. The garage door is sticking. Hubble's vet appointment is Thursday. It was all surface. Beneath it, the chasm was so deep and dark I felt dizzy if I peered into it for too long. Ben tried. Oh, God, did he try? It was pathetic. He'd come home with my favorite coconut cream pie from the bakery across town. He'd do all the laundry, folding my shirts with a heartbreaking precision. He'd look at me with those wounded, puppy dog eyes, brimming with a plea for absolution. He wanted a path back to innocence, a checklist of penance he could complete to erase the hotel room, the sharp nails, the demanding kiss. I ended it, he blurted one evening as I was loading the dishwasher. With Alicia. I told her it was a catastrophic mistake. That I love my wife. She didn't take it well. I didn't look up from the plates. How did she take it? She called me weak. His voice was small. She said I was pretending my life was something it wasn't. A bitter laugh escaped me. Well, she's not wrong about the pretending part. He flinched. I'm not pretending with you. Not anymore. This is real. My regret is real. But his regret felt like just another performance. He wasn't mourning the betrayal of me. He was mourning the loss of his own self-image as a good man. He was terrified of the consequences, of the collapse of the life we'd built. His insecurity had mutated into this desperate, cloying need for me to fix him, to absolve him so he could stop feeling so awful about himself. I started sleeping in the guest room. The master bedroom smelled like us, like history, and it was suffocating. The guest room was neutral, a blank slate. One night, I woke up at 3 a.m. from a dream so vivid my skin was slick with sweat. In the dream, I was in the hotel room. I was watching them, but I was also her star. I felt the coarse weave of Ben's work shirt under my palms, the heat of his skin through the cotton. As she leaned in, that spicy floral perfume filling my nostrils. I felt the prickle of his stubble against a mouth that was both mine and not mine. I felt the dizzying power of his surrender, the heady sensation of his body tensing, then yielding, under my confident touch. I felt his held breath release into the kiss, a sigh that was both shame and wanting. I jerked awake, my heart hammering against my ribs. I could still feel the ghost sensation of his lips, but were they on mine, or on hers? The line was obliterated. The intimacy he'd stolen from our marriage, he'd now forced upon me in this violent, psychic way. I was violated by a memory that wasn't even my own. I got up and walked to the kitchen for water. He was there, sitting at the island in the dark, a silhouette of misery. "I can't sleep either," he said, his voice hollow. I didn't respond. I filled my glass, the water loud in the silence. "Do you hate me?" he asked, the question a thin whisper. I turned and looked at his shadowed face. "No," I said, and it was the truth. Hate would have been a fire, a passion. What I felt was colder, more final. "I don't hate you. I just don't recognize you." The man I married would have come home and told me he was feeling vulnerable, that some woman at work was flirting and it was messing with his head. He would have asked for my help. He wouldn't have solved his insecurity by betraying me. He would have trusted me enough to be weak with me. He put his head in his hands. I was scared. Of what? Of me? Of being boring. Of being the safe, predictable guy. She made me feel dangerous. Desired. "And I made you feel loved," I said, the words hanging in the dark kitchen. Apparently, that wasn't enough. I went back to the guest room, closing the door softly. The ghost of the dream, of her hands on my husband, lingered. He was trying to be present, to fix what he broke with pies and laundry. But he was a ghost, too. The man I loved was gone. And the man sitting in the kitchen was a stranger whose weakness had become a monster that now lived in my own mind, touching me with stolen memories in the dead of night. We were two specters, haunting the corpse of our marriage. A week passed in that frozen, polite hell. Then, on a Tuesday morning, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes were tired, her hair hung limp, her posture was defensive. She looked like a victim. She looked like a woman waiting for permission to feel her own feelings. I couldn't stand her. I called in sick to work. I drove to a chic salon downtown, one I'd always considered too expensive and too trendy for my practical, shoulder-length style. I didn't have an appointment. I walked in, and when the stylist with purple bangs asked what I wanted, I heard myself say, "Something that doesn't feel like mine." She didn't blink. She got it. She sat me in the chair, draped the cape, and ran her fingers through my hair. "All the weight?" she asked softly. "All of it," I said, my heart hammering not with grief, but with a strange, terrified exhilaration. I didn't look as she cut. I closed my eyes and listened to the sharp snick of the scissors. I felt the pull of each strand release, a physical lightness following the shearing sound. It was more than hair falling to the floor. It was the weight of his hands in it, the memory of him twirling a lock around his finger while we watched TV. It was the version of me who believed his lies, who cooked his carbonara, who slept trusting the man beside her. That woman was being cut away, strand by strand. When she turned me toward the mirror, I gasped. My hair was a chic, jaw-length bob, sharp angles framing my face. It made my eyes look huge, my neck look long. I looked older, harder, but also awake. The woman in the mirror had survived something. She was someone who could make a decision. I paid, left a huge tip, and walked out into the autumn sun. The air on my exposed neck felt new, a constant, thrilling reminder of the change. I didn't go home. I went to a park, sat on a bench, and called my older sister, Mia. I hadn't told anyone. The shame had siloed me. But as the phone rang, I felt the first crack in that dam. "Hey, you," she answered. "Ben cheated on me," I said. No preamble. The words, released into the air, lost some of their power to choke me. There was a beat of stunned silence, then a furious, loving exhale. "That weak-spined motherfucker. Are you safe? Where are you? Do you want me to come?" Her instant, ferocious loyalty was a life raft. I started to cry, but they were different tears, cleaner, less desperate. I told her everything. The receipt, the confession, the hotel room foreplay, the ghost in my own house. "Oh, honey," she murmured. "The haircut is iconic. A classic screw you reset. Now, listen to me. You need to talk to a lawyer. Not because you've decided to divorce, but because you need to know your options. Knowledge is power right now. It will stop you from feeling like a passenger in your own life." A lawyer. It sounded so final, so adversarial. But she was right. I was floating in a sea of emotional chaos. I needed a concrete shore to swim toward, even if I never decided to land there. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay," she said. "I'm sending you the name of mine. Just do a consult. And I'm coming up this weekend. We'll drink wine and I'll help you hide the body if you want." I laughed, a wet, ragged sound that felt miraculous. When I hung up, I felt a sliver of strength, a thread of steel in my spine. I had done two things for myself, changed my appearance and broken the silence. When I walked back into the house that evening, Ben was at the stove. He turned, a forced, hopeful smile on his face, which immediately died when he saw me. His eyes widened in genuine shock, then flickered with something like fear. "Your hair," he stammered. "I know," I said, hanging my keys on the hook. "It's different." "It is?" "Why?" he asked, the insecurity raw in his voice. He was scared of this new version of me. He couldn't read her. The old me, he could predict, could manage with apologies and pies. This woman with the sharp bob was an unknown variable. "Because I needed to," I said, meeting his gaze evenly. "I have a consultation with a lawyer on Thursday afternoon. I'll be taking a personal day." The color drained from his face. The spoon he was holding clattered against the pot. "A lawyer? Please, please don't. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll do anything." "I know you will," I said calmly. "But right now, I need to know what anything looks like for *me star. What my choices are. You made your choice in that hotel room. Now I get to make mine, from a place of information, not shock." I walked past him to the guest room. The grief was still there, a heavy stone in my gut. But sitting beside it now was something else, a glimmer of agency. I had taken back control of my reflection, my narrative, and my next step. The path ahead was still shrouded in fog, but for the first time, I was the one holding the map. The law office was all cool marble, muted greys, and the faint, clean scent of lemon polish. It felt like the antithesis of my life, which was all heat, chaos, and the sour smell of betrayal. Sitting in the sleek waiting room, I felt like an imposter. My sharp new haircut in the reflection of the glass coffee table looked like armor, but inside, I was trembling. Susan Abernathy, the attorney my sister recommended, was nothing like the shark I'd imagined. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a calm, measured voice. She ushered me into an office with a view of the Rocky Mountains, a jarring backdrop of permanence to my temporary ruin. "Tell me why you're here," she said, steepling her fingers. No pity, just professional openness. The story spilled out, more clinical this time. The receipt, the confession, the emotional withdrawal. I found myself using his words. He said he let it happen. He said she was aggressive. Susan listened, taking occasional notes. When I finished, she set her pen down. "First, I'm sorry you're going through this. It's a profound violation. What you're feeling is normal. Now, let's talk about what happens next, legally and practically, should you choose to pursue dissolution." The word dissolution was so apartment. It wasn't just a break, it was a chemical UN bonding. She walked me through it: equitable distribution of assets, the house, our retirement accounts, Hubble, the possibility of spousal support given our income disparity, the fact that Colorado is a no-fault state. The infidelity doesn't materially affect the division, she explained gently, but it can influence negotiations. Emotionally, it changes everything. Practically, it's often a footnote. A footnote. My marriage, reduced to a footnote in a legal document. It was devastating and, somehow, freeing. "What about the house?" I asked, my throat tight. "You can buy him out, he can buy you out, or you sell and split the equity. Given the current market, selling is often cleanest. I pictured our home, the garden we'd planted, the wall we'd painted a comically wrong shade of blue and lived with for a year, the scratch on the hardwood from moving the piano. It would all be packaged, staged, and sold to strangers. The thought hollowed me out. What do most people do? I whispered. There is no most people, Susan said, her gaze steady. There's only you. Do you feel safe? Do you have support? My strongest advice, regardless of what you decide about the marriage, is to start securing your financial independence. Open a separate bank account if you don't have one. Gather important documents. And give yourself time. You don't have to decide anything today. I left an hour later with a folder of information, a business card, and a head swimming with numbers and terms. The cold clarity of it was a strange balm. The grief was a swamp, but the law was a grid of paved roads through it. I now had a map, even if I wasn't sure of my destination. When I got home, Ben was a nervous wreck. He'd clearly been pacing. How did it go? He asked, his voice strained. It was informative, I said, placing the folder on the entryway table. It seemed to hum with danger between us. What did she say? The desperation was back, clawing at his words. She explained my options. Financially, logistically. And, he pressed, stepping closer. What are you going to do? I looked at him, at the man whose touch now repelled me, whose future was a question mark I held in my hands. For the first time, I saw not just my hurt husband, but a liability. A variable in an equation. I don't know what I'm going to do, I said, and it was the truth. But I know what I can do. And that's enough for now. His shoulders slumped. He wanted a battle, a negotiation, a chance to plead his case. My calm uncertainty was a door he couldn't open. He'd been waiting for the explosion, but I was giving him a slow, silent frost. I'll be in the guest room, I said. Mia is coming this weekend. Panic flashed across his face. My sister, his fiercest critic. Her arrival would be a declaration of war to him. To me, it was a lifeline. Please don't shut me out, he begged, one last, weak attempt. I paused at the hallway. You shut me out first, Ben. In a hotel room with a bottle of Sancerre. You don't get to complain about the draft now. That night, I spread the lawyer's documents on the guest bed. I looked at numbers, at percentages, at the cold math of an ended life. And for the first time since finding that receipt, I didn't cry. I stuttered. The woman with the sharp haircut was learning a new language, the language of survival. And the first lesson was that the heart's ledger and the court's ledger are two very different things. One was written in blood and tears. The other, in ink and precedent. I needed to understand both if I was ever going to be free. Mia arrived on Friday night like a hurricane in a cashmere sweater. She swept into the foyer, dropped her bag, and wrapped me in a hug so tight I felt my ribs creak. She smelled of citrus and cold air. She didn't even look at Ben, who hovered awkwardly by the kitchen archway. Go get us wine, she commanded him, her voice leaving no room for debate. The good Pinot. And then make yourself scarce. It wasn't cruel, just definitive. Ben, looking relieved to be given a task, scuttled away. We settled in the living room. Mia took my hand, her eyes scanning my face. The haircut is a 10. The circles under your eyes are a 0. Talk. And I did. I told her about the lawyer, the cold facts, the fog of not knowing. I told her about the ghostly week, the pathetic pies, the 3 a.m. dream that still haunted me. I confessed the darkest thought. Sometimes, I look at him and I miss him so much it physically hurts. And then I remember what he did, and I hate myself for missing a ghost. Mia squeezed my hand. That's the addiction talking. You're withdrawing from the future you thought you had. It's normal. She took a long sip of wine. Now, tell me what you want. Not what's fair, not what's easiest, not what will punish him. What do you want for you? I stared into my glass. I want to not feel this pain. I want to trust my own judgment again. I want to wake up, and not have the first thought in my mind be a movie of him with someone else. Okay, she said, pragmatic as always. Those are feelings. Let's talk actions. Can you imagine ever touching him again? Really? Without seeing her hands. The question was a bucket of ice water. I let the scene surface, Ben leaning in to kiss me goodnight 2 days prior, a peck on the cheek. I'd flinched. My skin had crawled. The memory of his confession was a filter over everything. His lips were the lips that had said, her mouth was different. More demanding. His hands were the hands that had trembled undoing a stranger's clothes. No, I whispered, the finality of it chilling me. I can't. Mia nodded. Then you have your answer about trying to fix it. You can't rebuild a house on a foundation of revulsion. Just then, Ben appeared, shuffling in with a bowl of pretzels he'd clearly felt obligated to provide. He stood there, a supplicant. Mia turned her gaze on him, and it was like a spotlight. Ben, she said, her tone deceptively calm. Sit. Explain to me how you let this happen. He sank into an armchair, looking like a schoolboy in the principal's office. He launched into his rehearsed spiel, the insecurity, the long hours, Alicia's aggression, the wine, the moment he'd just let it happen. Mia listened, unblinking. When he finished, sniffling, she asked one simple question. When her knee touched yours under that table, did you move your knee away? He froze. The answer was written in the guilty collapse of his shoulders. He hadn't. That was the first yes, Mia said softly, lethally. Everything after was just you continuing to say yes. You didn't let it happen. You made it happen one conscious, cowardly choice at a time. It was the truth I hadn't been able to articulate. He hadn't been swept away. He'd taken step after step, each one a betrayal. The hotel bar instead of a public restaurant. The ride in the elevator. Crossing the threshold of room 1214. The first touch. The kiss. I kissed her back. Ben broke down then, true, ugly sobs. I'm a monster. I know. I hate myself. I don't care if you hate yourself, Mia said, without malice. My sister cared for you. She loved you. And you treated her love like a comfort you could keep in your pocket while you went out to play. That's not a mistake, Ben. That's a character flaw. The room was silent except for his crying. I watched him, and the missing him feeling evaporated, burned away by the clarity of my sister's words. He had made choices. A series of them. And each one was a deliberate door he closed between us. You should leave, I heard myself say. My voice was quiet but clear in the hushed room. Just for the weekend. Go to a hotel. Give me space to breathe in my own home without your remorse filling up all the oxygen. His head shot up, eyes wide with shock. He'd expected to be punished, analyzed, maybe even fought over. He hadn't expected to be banished. Where will I go? I don't know, I said, a flicker of the old me worrying about his comfort, instantly smothered by the new, sharper me. You seem to know your way around hotels. The words hung in the air, brutal and necessary. He flinched as if struck. After a long moment, he stood, defeated, and trudged upstairs to pack a bag. The sound of the zipper was the sound of a temporary ending. When the front door closed behind him, the house seemed to exhale. The oppressive weight of his guilt lifted slightly. Mia refilled my glass. The first time you choose yourself over his comfort is the hardest, she said. It gets easier. That night, for the first time since D-Day, I slept in my own bed. It still smelled like him, like us, and it was painful. But it was also mine. Mia was down the hall. The silence was no longer filled with his pathetic energy, but with a nascent, grieving peace. I had used my voice. I had drawn a boundary. It was a small power, but for the first time, the power was mine, and not his to give or take away. The path forward was still dark, but I was no longer standing still, waiting for him to illuminate it. I had taken my first step, alone. With Ben gone, the house became a museum of a life I no longer lived. Mia and I moved through it like curators. We didn't trash his things or set fire to his side of the closet. Instead, we drank coffee in the silent kitchen and talked about the future in practical, unflinching terms. The house has to go, I said on Sunday morning, the words no longer tasting like acid. I can't afford to buy him out, and the thought of him buying me out and staying here. I can't. Mia nodded. It's just walls and wood. The life that happened here is already over. She was right. The love that had animated these rooms had vacated the premises. What remained was a shell, haunted by the ghost of his betrayal and the echo of my grief. On Sunday evening, Ben texted, "Can I come talk, *?" My heart jumped, but not with hope. With dread. With the exhaustion of having to manage his emotions one more time. Come at 7, I texted back. Mia will be here. He arrived looking ragged, carrying a duffel bag of shame. Mia, to her credit, made herself subtly present, reading a book in the living room within earshot. A guardian, not an interrogator. We sat at the kitchen island, the same place where he'd confessed. The ledger was between us now, both the emotional one and the legal one. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he began, his hands clasped tightly. I'll do anything. Counseling. A post-nup. You can have full control of the finances. I'll change jobs. Just, please. Don't give up on us. His offers were grand, desperate gestures. But they felt like someone offering to rebuild a castle after they'd already burned it down. The foundation was ash. I can't, I said, and for the first time, the words held no wobble, only a quiet finality. When I think of us, I don't see a future. I see that hotel room. I see you choosing, over and over, to step closer to her and farther from me. My body recoils from you, Ben. That's not something counseling can fix. He crumpled. So that's it. 12 years, and you're just walking away. A spark of the old anger flickered. I'm not the one who walked away. You did. You just took a very long, dishonest route out the door. I took a steadying breath. I want to sell the house. An equitable split. Clean. I've spoken to Susan about the preliminary paperwork. He looked stunned, as if he truly believed his grand offers would be a magic spell. You've already decided. I'm deciding right now, I corrected him. And my decision is that I cannot be married to you anymore. The trust isn't just broken. It's pulverized. I would spend the rest of my life being your parole officer, checking your phone, smelling your collar, waiting for the next insecure moment when someone else makes you feel seen. I refuse to live that life. I deserve peace. The word deserve hung in the air. It was new. For weeks, I'd only known what I had lost, what he had taken. Now, I was starting to articulate what I was owed: dignity, security, a life not defined by his betrayal. Is there someone else, he asked, the question so small and pathetic it almost made me pity him. No, I said, and it was the greatest kindness I could offer him, the truth that his was the only infidelity in this marriage. There's just me. And I need to learn how to be enough for myself again, without you in the equation. He cried then, quiet, defeated tears. They were different from the performative sobs of previous weeks. These were the tears of a man finally understanding the irreversible consequence of his actions. He was not crying for me, but for the life he had obliterated. I'll sign whatever you need, he whispered. I'll move out. I'll find an apartment. Thank you, I said. And I meant it. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement that he was, finally, not fighting me on the reality he had created. After he left, Mia came and put an arm around me. I was dry-eyed. The grief had settled into a deep, steady ache, a companion I was learning to walk with. You were amazing, she said. I was just honest, I replied. For the first time since this started, I was completely honest with him, and with myself. That night, I walked through the quiet house. I touched the countertops, the walls, the books on the shelves. I was saying goodbye. Not with a dramatic flourish, but with a soft, sorrowful acknowledgement. This chapter was closed. The story of Ben and me had reached its brutal, unambiguous end. But as I stood in the doorway of the guest room, room, I felt a strange, thin sliver of light pierce the heavy darkness. It was the faint, terrifying glow of a new beginning. The decision was made. The path, though painful, was clear. Now, the only thing left to do was walk it. The sale of the house was a 5-month lesson in detachment. We signed papers, we packed boxes, we divided photographs with a solemn, surgical precision. The final walk-through felt like an out-of-body experience. The rooms were just empty spaces, echoing with the ghosts of our better selves. I didn't cry. I felt a profound, quiet relief as I turned the key over to the young couple, who saw only potential, not history. I moved into a bright, 2-bedroom apartment across town. The first night, surrounded by boxes, eating pizza on the floor, Hubble curled at my side, I felt a terrifying and exhilarating loneliness. It was all mine. The silence was mine to fill. The divorce became final on a Tuesday. It was an email from my lawyer. No courtroom drama, just a PDF attachment that legally dissolved what had already been shattered in spirit. I read it, closed my laptop, and made a cup of tea. The world didn't end. The sun kept setting. Grief, I learned, isn't a linear path. It's a spiral. Some days I'd feel fierce, powerful in my independence, my sharp bob catching the light. Other days, a song, a smell of rain on concrete, the way a certain slant of light hit the floor in my new apartment, would drop me right back into the pit. The memory of his betrayal was no longer a knife to the gut, but a chronic ache, a weather system that passed through. I let it pass. I stopped fighting it. I heard through the grapevine that Ben moved in with a friend, that he'd started therapy. I felt nothing but a distant hope that he'd fix whatever was broken in him, for the sake of his own future. My story was no longer entwined with his healing. That was the most powerful revelation of all. One evening, 6 months after the move, I was painting my second bedroom, the one I'd turned into a studio, a bold, ridiculous color called Brave Violet. I was covered in splotches, music blaring, and I realized I was humming. Then I was singing. Then I was dancing, right there on the drop cloth. I stopped, paint roller in hand, and laughed out loud. It was a sound of pure, uncomplicated joy, and it didn't need a witness. It was mine. This is what I learned in the raw and brutal classroom of heartbreak. You cannot love someone into being faithful. His insecurity was his to manage, not yours to cure. My steady love was not a shield against his poor character, it was just the backdrop against which he chose to betray me. The details are a gift. The sharp nails, the held breath, the specific perfume, they were horrific to discover, but they were the brutal, graphic truth. They prevented me from romanticizing the affair or minimizing it into a mistake. They armed me with the clarity I needed to leave. Letting it happen is a lie. Infidelity is an active verb. It's a series of conscious choices, to respond, to linger, to touch, to kiss, to hide. Anyone who claims passivity is still lying, mostly to themselves. Your new life will be built in the quiet moments. It's in the first peaceful sleep, the first meal you cook just for yourself, the first time you realize you've gone a whole day without thinking of him. It's in the brave violet walls. These are the bricks. Lay them carefully. The love you risked is still a credit to you. The fact that you loved deeply and trusted completely is not a weakness. It is your strength. His betrayal does not retroactively taint your capacity for love. It just means he was unworthy of the specific, magnificent gift you were offering. So, if you're in the thick of it, the shock so fresh you can't breathe, the evidence burning a hole in your perception of reality, breathe. Get the haircut. Call the sister. See the lawyer. Feel every scorching, ugly feeling. But know this, on the other side of this pain is a version of you who knows her own worth with a bone-deep certainty that no one can ever shake again. You are not surviving the end of your story. You are in the difficult, magnificent opening chapters of a new one. And this time, you hold the pen.